And TIA's Engineering Committee, TR14, is responsible for the 222 standard for steel antenna towers and supporting structures. This week was the 55th anniversary of the inception of the 222 standard, and John Erichsen, Principal Structural Engineer at EET, is here to tell us all about it. And John, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Of course, we're talking, as I mentioned before, about the standard for steel antenna towers and supporting structures. For our viewers who are not familiar, can you give us kind of the general synopsis or overview, if you will, of the standard?
Well, 222 was initially conceived to support the AM, FM, and the over-air broadcast of television. And since that time period, it's developed into becoming the integral part of providing data and cell phone and video on demand through the cellular network.
John, take me back, I don't know if you can go all the way back 55 years, but take me back to the inception of the standard and the original purpose for it.
That was a consensus document built by engineering professionals to create commonality for the manufacturers. So they had a method and a means of helping the consumer, in that case it was the telephone companies, the broadcasters, get a reliable product into the marketplace.
Now, I know there's some impending revisions to the standard. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we're in the process of developing the H revision of the standard. And the reason we develop these revisions is to stay in touch with the building codes and to bring into new technology. So, as an example, there's changes in the hurricane winds along the coastlines, there's changes in seismic loads. And so what we're doing is we're trying to keep the standard in touch with those changes so that we're germane to the building codes and it'll be accepted by the municipalities.
John, one thing we talk about quite a bit here at TIA is the network of the future, and sometimes we call it the future of the network. How do steel antenna towers fit into this network of the future?
Well, they're essential for the development of the network, cellular network. You'll see them become smaller as the density requirements for broadcast and receiving the signals grows, but there will always be a cellular tower on the outskirts or positioned in a strategic place to help the communication and to bring those smaller cells into the major network.
Now, of course, the next generation, if you will, of cellular connectivity is small cell technology. How does that impact what you do with steel towers?
Well, that's still to be determined, but we believe that that'll be something that you'll see on the corners built into lighting fixtures or other, structures that you see every day as you walk the sidewalk. We're not sure exactly how that will be impacted, the 222 standard, but we believe that there'll be a role for us to play as we help and advise the building officials and how to implement them and to build them safely.
Now, of course, the next question is a much smaller issue compared to what you normally do on a daily basis, but I have to ask, steel antenna towers are typically considered to be eyesores. What are you guys doing about that?
Well, we can hide them. There's been cacti, there's been pine trees. Many a church steeple is now a broadcast site. Typically they're done because the necessity to have that structure in that position is required in order to maintain the network and to give you improved coverage for 911 and other emergency services. So it's important that we do get these sites located, and if times we have to hide them, we'll hide them.
Now, I'll ask you one more question, and it's probably not a fair question, and I asked you this before in our pre-show discussion. 55th anniversary this week for steel antenna towers and supporting structures, at least the standard for them. If I can ask you where you see steel antenna towers over the next 55 years, is that unfair to ask?
Well, yeah, little. I mean, technology is evolving faster and faster. I think it's becoming more of an essential part of society, obviously because of the cell phones. There's very few homes now that have landlines. So you're going to see that demand for the infrastructure to grow. Whether the structures will get smaller or centralized or distributed, it's really going to depend upon the technology that we put on the towers, less about the towers themselves.
John, thanks so much for telling us more about the TIA's 222 standard.
Thank you.